the difference between her and the book and the movie is like there is no difference. It is the same person. Overall, I think that was one of the things that really just doesn't change is Miranda is a horrible person in the book and the movie. Hey book besties, it's Maria Kayatsa and I'm back for a ramble about the differences between The Devil Wears Prada the book and The Devil Wears Prada the movie. Obviously, I'm doing this just in time to jump into the book Revenge Wears Prada and the movie The Devil Wears Prada 2 that's coming out in May, and I am so excited to compare the differences, and also I might have a few more episodes like this in the hopper for the future. It's kind of funny because I really wanted to do this episode because I love comparing books to movies, and I recently read The Devil Wears Prada the first time because I wanted to read book 2 to prep for the movie. But I actually haven't watched any videos like this before, so I have no idea how they're usually done, so sorry. Buckle up, Buttercup. Let's go. I guess let's just kind of dive into a couple of the characters that are in here, and then we'll kind of break down a couple of the different scenes and differences between the movie and the book. So I want to start out by talking about Andy, and this kind of like this image kind of like encompasses a lot of what she is in the book as well as the movie, but at the same time there's a lot of differences here. First of all, the movie version of Andy is a lot more lovable than the book version of Andy. What I really think makes this movie shine is that it takes an IP that is not the world's greatest story, because it has a lot of like easily hateable characters, and it makes it just so charming and enjoyable in a really like refreshing way. So I actually like it. This is one of those situations, at least for me, that I enjoy the movie more than the book. So first of all, Andy is obviously like stress incarnate during most of the year that she works for Miranda. But also in the book, one of the big major differences is she starts working for Miranda while Miranda is on vacation in France. So she kind of has like a soft launch on working for Miranda, and so she has some time to acclimate and is like starting to see some like weird realizations before Miranda actually like comes back to the office, and then the chaos ensues, obviously. Meanwhile, book Andy is also like a smoker, and I would say that she's a little bit self-sabotaging because like while she's doing all of these things for Miranda, like she like takes smoke breaks and has phone calls with her friends and family. And you know, while that would be okay in most jobs, it's not okay working for Miranda. And you can tell from the way she's narrated that she knows that, but she doesn't care. And this is her first real job out of college, and I really feel that like if she had taken it more seriously from the start, she might have had an easier time kind of settling in, especially because later on in the book, Emily actually brings this up. She says, you know, I used to do this job. I know how long it takes to do these things. And like is really kind of like laying down the law to Andy in those moments, and is like, you know, you don't have to do this. You could be better at this, and you would be still as stressed out as you normally are, but it would be less bad. Dude, what is Stanley Tucci's character's name? Nigel. The next character I want to talk about is Nigel. While he is a super pivotal character in the movie, he's actually not super important to the book. You see him maybe twice, and it's kind of like weird how much they decided to put him in the movie, given that like in the book he's not there at all. But I really like, I overall, obviously, like between making a book and making a movie, there's going to be some like combination of certain things to make it just fit into a shorter format. Like you can't take an 8-hour book and put it into a 2-hour movie and have it be beat for beat perfect. So like I really actually like how charming they made Nigel and that he becomes an important character to the story. But it's odd to me that they chose him and not one of the other characters who was there a little bit more and seemed a little bit more lovable. But like I feel like they combined those characters together to make one character that would just embody both. The next character I want to talk about is Nate, who is Andy's boyfriend. And in the book, we don't have Nate at all. In the book, we have a character named Alex, and Alex is Andy's obviously long-term boyfriend. They met in college and are still dating. But the difference here is that Nate in the movie is a chef, and he is working for some restaurant in town, and then we have Alex in the book, who is also working in New York, but he's working in like Queens or something, and he's a teacher, and like he's a teacher who's like super married to his work, and works for a low income, like really just like in need neighborhood, and like he is made out to be like this saintly person who's just like above all else. So I actually like, I kind of love both characters and for different reasons, and I don't know if it would have been better to see that character juxtaposed against Andy and all of her kind of like bad decisions throughout the movie, or if having Nate with his like not working and teaching and just like kind of being a little bit more like a normal guy was better or not. So like they made an interesting choice there, completely making this like a different character. Throughout the movie and book, we see this character named Christian. And in the book, we have one name, and in the movie, we have a different name. So, like, last names, rather. And so I'm not going to get into, like, the last names. Christian is, you know, the guy you see on the screen right now. I have a picture of him up there talking to Andy. And so he's actually kind of like a very similar character in both sides of things, but I think that I liked the book him better because he was very respectful of the fact that he knew that Andy was in a relationship, and so even though he was obviously like making passes and interested, he didn't push that boundary beyond that. So while in the movie we have this kind of like cheating scenario that isn't like super great, in the book we don't have that, but we do have him being there as an interested third party that just like makes himself known and available to Andy if she wants that. I want to talk a little bit about Miranda, but at the same time, the difference between her and the book and the movie is like, there is no difference. It is the same person. Overall, I think that was one of the things that really just doesn't change is Miranda is a horrible person in the book and the movie. And by the gods, what's her name? Meryl Streep. Oh my gosh. I cannot tell. I've watched like every movie by this woman and I cannot remember her name to save my life. Anyway, Meryl Streep really just brings this character to life. I love the little anecdote that Anne Hathaway says about her in the filming of this movie, that she starts the movie like before they're filming and everything by like complimenting her and saying she's like really excited to work with her, and then saying, and that's the last nice thing I'm going to say to you until we're done filming. And then she just like went on to be like raging Miranda Priestley for the rest of the filming. One character that I forgot to take a picture of that also takes like a really huge like portion of the book that we don't really see in the movie at all is Andy's best friend Lily. In the book, she is going through it. Like in the book, she is struggling with like expectations for her like doctoral program, and she's struggling with alcoholism, and she is making some like really overall bad choices, and we're seeing that like often on the page. It's brought up quite often that she's like really struggling, and Andy can't be there for her because she's like working for Miranda and never has time to do anything. But in the movie, we don't see that at all. Like she's like kind of living her best life, and we don't see what Lily is going through. So I thought that was an interesting choice, but at the same time, I really feel like the movie is about Andy, and the book is about Andy too, but it has a lot more nuance to it. So it didn't lose charm in the translation. I think it like kind of gained it, but the movie really makes the Andy and Miranda thing like the focus, and versus the book, the Andy and Miranda thing is one of the many plot points. One of the scenes that really comes to mind that's very different between the movie and the book is the scene where Miranda's having this big like gala, and she is having Emily tell her who all is there, and so Miranda looks like she knows who everybody is. But in the book, Emily was never a part of this equation, and in reality, it's always in this situation just Andy going to this. And Andy wasn't necessarily underprepared for it. It's just that she only had like a day to prepare for it, and at this was a really interesting scene in the book that you don't see throughout the movie, is that she's at this ball, and before the ball she's like really like going through it. At this like gala, she runs into a assistant or something, someone who's running the show and like making sure everything's going smoothly, and that person is like going through it, and she kind of helps calm them down and is like, you know, Miranda's like this all of the time, so it's fine. And that person happens to notice that Andy's really like struggling, and like says, you know what, go calm down, have a cry. And then afterwards says, hey, you know, I have like this really like unflattering picture of Miranda. Do you want me to like courier it to your house? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. And so she um, gets this really like ugly picture of her and is like, this makes me feel a little bit better, and then is like, well, I can't keep this because, you know, if Miranda found out I had it, she'd flay me alive or whatever. And like it was just like this really weird, interesting, like Andy's starting to kind of buy into the Miranda stuff, but at the same time is still like struggling. Um, and but she's also seeing that like she affects other people as well. And so like she feels a little bit of hope there. Finally, one of the things I wanted to talk about is the difference between the end of the movie and the end of the book. Because there's a huge difference between them, and I actually prefer one over the other. In the movie, we see that Miranda and Andy are in the car, and Andy says, I could never do what you did, and Miranda says, you already did. I really see a lot of myself in you at your age. And Andy is like, you know, this is my choice point. This is what breaks me here. And she, you know, throws her phone in the fountain and goes home. And while the way she leaves is similar in the book, it's also very different. It's a lot more in your face. So in the book, we see kind of a very similar situation. Miranda says, you're a lot like me when I was your age. And that line loops in Andy's head for a minute. And she thinks about that line while she's doing a speech at Miranda's banquet. And after this speech is done, Miranda storms up to her and is like, I can't believe that my daughter's passports are expired. They're supposed to be here tomorrow. I need you to get me a passport for them right now. And she thinks about this just wildly unreasonable demand. Like, nobody can get a passport renewed in 24 hours. That's just not possible. And she realizes that, like, of all of the things Miranda has asked her for in the last year, this is the one thing that she literally couldn't do if she tried. And she was just like, you know what? This is it. I'm done here. I'm going to have to blur this out. Miranda. And she says this in public. So everybody sees that she literally quits. In front of, like, this is in public. There's a ton of people who see it. It makes the news. And she goes home and she starts putting her life back together, and she spends a weekend writing a short story about her experience, but just from like a different perspective, like a younger perspective, and, you know, taking out all of the details of the work and the job and everything. And she submits this to a magazine, and the magazine editor like invites her to talk to her, and they meet up, and it turns out that this magazine editor like compliments her for standing up to Miranda, and that somebody needed to for once. It turns out like there's a whole bunch of people in the magazine world and the publishing world who are actually glad to see that somebody stood up to Miranda where nobody else did. So that's how she actually kind of makes her living as a writer after that. And not only that, but like there's also this really great moment where she's on her way into a different Elias Clark magazine office, and her replacement gets stopped by the security guard, and he's messing with her just like he messed with Andy for the last year. And he is making the new Miranda girl sing American Pie, and she just thinks to herself, like, yeah, I went through it, and he was there, and for that moment he made me feel like I matter. And I really liked that ending even a little bit more than what we see in the movie, because, like, while the ending of the movie is great and she kind of gets what she wants, I feel like she more gets what she needs in the book, and it's just very charming. And while I love both, and I have an obvious preference towards the movie just because it makes the characters a lot more lovable than they are in the book, I really actually prefer the ending to the book over the movie. So, anyway, if you enjoyed this, share your thoughts below in the comments, and I hope to see you next time when I talk about other movies versus books. And don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.